Steve brings him over and he's kind of got this mean mug. He's like, I'm like, oh shit. He's like, this is the kid. This is Robbie. And he like kind of looks at me, shakes my hand. He's like, listen, can I ask you a question? Do you like Shawn Michaels? I'm like, the wrestler? He's like, yeah. Do you like Shawn Michaels? I'm like, I love Shawn Michaels, dude.
All right, welcome to another episode of Here We Grow. It's been a minute. I was in the land down under, so took a month off here, but we're back. And today's going to be very story heavy, which I'm super stoked about. I think that's like kind of like what's turned into like the goal here is to tell the untold stories that, you know, you'd only hear at a real estate office. So today I got my buddy here from Ottawa. Why don't you tell me like your quick like 30-second story on who you are?
So my name is Robbie Williams. I am not the 18-time British pop
I just left out your name in your intro. Like.
Yeah, it's all good, man.
I should introduce you as Tarek. That's how I should have started it.
No, I'm not as jacked. I have a little more hair, and I'm a lot less intense. And I do a lot less deals. He's a killer. So
well, to connect the dots too, like so how we met is through. I started my career in Ottawa because my dad's been in real estate. So actually, it's kind of funny. I don't think a lot of people know this, but I wasn't gonna do real estate. We have a lot of similar ties. Yeah. I actually wanted to sell beer, right? So that's you still do that, right?
Yeah.
So I want to do that first, and then I got introduced to Tarek, and I went into his office, and like day one, so he took me on as an intern after I graduated, and the day one I walked in his office and fucking.
The ball.
Yeah, like, dude, they had a disco ball in the office going off when we got deals done, and like there was high energy. So he wasn't working with Steve at the point, but Steve would be walking up and down the hallways with his AirPods in and stuff, and it was like I felt like I was in Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like, you know what, like this is the business that I want to be in. So who Robbie works with right now is who I started that with. They started with a couple of partners. They started the #1 fastest growing RE/MAX in the world for a couple of years.
Yep.
So that was cool to be a part of, and then I came back here, but. So give like your 30-second to like kind of how you got into real estate and your sales journey quickly.
Yeah, so quickly I was I went to University of Ottawa, so I'm actually a GTA guy. I went to University of Ottawa, started bartending at the Great Canadian Cabin, which was a pretty legendary like country bar.
Yes, it is.
And yeah, we did everything. I did some pretty cool stuff. So we did like private parties for One Direction, which was nuts.
Oh, really?
I did like Juno parties, the NHL All-Star party. It was crazy. I like every Saturday we'd have NHL guest bartenders that would come, and it was a shit show. But as I kind of got into my mid-20s, I'm like, I don't want to be the bartender like the rest of my life. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I wanted something different. And I saw a lot of people having success in real estate in that sphere that I'd moved on. Especially one of the bartenders was running a development company. So I was renting from him already, and met with him, and he was like, hey man, I need a leasing agent. So I ended up getting on as a leasing agent with him. And I mean, we had about 650, 700 tenants. Probably 60% of them were students. So that was pretty hectic. A lot of them were either had worked for me or came to my bar and knew me from that sphere, or I met otherwise. So it was a really interesting experience. Definitely got me a lot more polished, and I had to learn quite a bit. But then as I was leasing all these buildings nonstop and showing nonstop and taking all these crazy calls, because these buildings I was dealing with between 2 tenants to like 8 tenants in a unit. Right. I was like meeting real estate agents. I'm like, these guys are selling the building and they're making the real money, way more, doing way less, and they're not getting calls at 1 o'clock in the morning, like, hey, my light won't turn on. Can you like come change my light bulb and stuff like that, right? So
little did you know they are though. Now I'm sure you found out. We get all sorts of calls.
All sorts. Never stops, but I mean, that's what you sign up for. So
then you got into real estate, and then so how do you get it? How do you get into real estate? Like was Tarek the one who kind of got you? Like,
so I was getting. I had I had a few good buddies in the GTA in Muskoka, which like we had I cottage there in the summer, who were like every time I saw them, they were driving a better car. Right. You see them. They started with the white Beamer. Classic. And then next thing you know, these driving a G-Wagon or this, and you go in his house and you're like, dude, what? And I kind of saw these guys really level up. Yeah. And just the pace that they were working, just their mindset as well. And I was like, wow, this is definitely an area where, you get what you put into it. Mm-hmm. And I could see myself, in that sphere. So originally I was going to move back to the Whitby, but then I met Steve Alexopoulos. Right. Which this is kind of funny too. And there's going to be a couple name drops here, but I used to just like on Instagram and stuff like that. I used to DM a lot of people, like, because I figure if I don't have a problem talking to the hot chick at the bar, or DMing the chick, why don't I ask these millionaires or real estate guys questions? So like, this was like back in the day, so like Brad Lee or Ed Milet or Grant Cardone.
I was gonna say, you told me the story once of talking to Grant Cardone. So he sent you a book or something, right?
Yeah. So the Grant Cardone story is like, I was messaging this guy and asking him all these questions, and then nothing weird happened here. He's not getting canceled, but he's like, dude, add me on Snapchat. So he added me. I added this guy on Snapchat, and I would send him like, he would send me videos, and I would send him videos like asking questions. He'd answer them and texting back and forth. And I got his email and shit. So one time Steve and I met, and I was talking to him, and he was like, "Oh, Grant Cardone's." I'm like, "Dude, I'm actually talking to this dude. Like, read through this shit." So we started talking, went for lunch, and then eventually, basically, decided to stay in Ottawa.
Right.
I had a good social currency from just meeting all these people throughout the years in Ottawa, and I'd been there for about 7 or 8 years. Didn't really want to move back to the GTA. And then
so
I'll tell you how I met Tarek.
Okay, so before that, what's the true art of the DM? Because obviously you perfected it. If it's working this frequently, can you share the secret sauce?
I mean, people just want to be like talked to,
right?
You know, a lot of the time. And if you have legitimate questions that aren't weird, and you don't start off as like a fanboy,
right?
They're generally like gonna ask. I mean, I remember
get to the point too. I imagine with those guys,
dude. Those guys, a lot of the time, they want to help.
Yeah.
Because they've been helped by somebody, or there's a mentorship program.
Right.
And you got to understand how to transact. You don't want to be too like, hey man, you know, do you want to come to my birthday? You want to come to my wedding? Like, you know what I mean? Just,
right.
But I even remember one time talking to my dad, and this was sage advice. Anytime I got involved in anything, whether it was sports or this, that, the other, people would always ask me to volunteer. And this is when I was like my early 20s and didn't have like a lot of dough. And I'd always be like, man, I want to trade my time for money.
Yeah.
I remember one time my dad said to me, he's like, think about the most important people in your life, whether they were sports coaches, leaders, etc. He goes, a lot of them either volunteered their time or paid to be in your life and affect your life. So I think with a lot of these guys who have made it, they just want to help these younger guys because they probably had random advice from whoever they looked up to. So I think that was it.
Yeah.
But now these guys are so big. I mean, A, I don't DM them anymore. But B, yeah. A lot of their stuff's free online too, which is nice.
So, okay, so now you're with the Metro City Property Group, which is Tarek Alatar and Steve. No one can pronounce his last name. Alex Tropolis.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. So how do you said there's a good story about meeting Tarek, so we got to hear this.
Okay, so
these guys are high level guys, and
by the way, Tarek is like the Phantom of the Opera. He hates social media in this, but he's like sneaky watching. He's probably got a camera hooked up right now, and I'm pretty sure he's like in with the CIA, like Alex Jones. He's got all these crazy Alex Jones stories. But so Steve, I affectionately call him Aloofopoulos sometimes because he's like pretty aloof. He's pretty like laid back and chill, but he's a killer when he needs to be. And I was almost like nervous to meet Tarek. I don't get intimidated by too many like mortal men, but like you see him in the pictures and he's kind of just like, I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, am I going to like this guy? Is he going to rub me the wrong way? Is he going to be too intense? So we go to Joey's one time.
Great restaurant.
And I see Tarek, right? I've never met him, but I've seen pictures of him.
Right.
So Steve brings him over, and he's kind of got this mean mug. He's like, I'm like, oh shit. So he's like in this corner. There's all these dudes, and Steve's like, this is the kid. This is Robbie. And he like kind of looks at me, and I'm kind of just like, how's this interaction gonna go? And he's like, the legend, shakes my hand. He's like, listen, can I ask you a question?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, what? He's like, can I ask you a question? And I was thinking he was going to be like a quote, like a typical, like, are you ready to do the meal steals of your life? Are you ready to like make life-changing money? Are you whatever? And I'm like, yeah, what's that? He's like, can I ask you a question? I'm like, yeah. He goes, do you like Shawn Michaels? I'm like, what? Like the wrestler? He's like, yeah, do you like Shawn Michaels? I'm like, I love Shawn Michaels, dude. He's like, fucking right, man. I don't know if you swear, but he's like, friggin' right, man. He's like, DX, baby, DX.
Oh my God.
Me, him, and Steve were talking about like that. And then he's like, man, you come to my team. Cause I had talked to a few different groups, but I kind of always knew I was going to go with Steve in that. And he's like, man, we're going to go to a WrestleMania. We're going to do this. So right off the get go, I knew these guys were legitimately serious businessmen, but they had that playful fun side that I really vibe with. And it's super important. And that's why our team's growing so quickly, because not only are they killers when they need to be, they're just so fun and relatable.
They're the perfect like yin and yang too. I find when you with these guys, I think they're both intimidating guys. Like if I didn't know them and you put yourself in a room with them, especially like if you ever done the disc test.
Yes,
Tarek is like a high D, high D, nothing else. Like he's just like give me the answers. Like I remember when I was doing the training, like dude, I was 19. I didn't even know where Barhaven was, and I was making cold calls. And like people would be like, "Is this a good neighborhood?" And I had no idea.
Oh yeah,
I'd be like, "Vanier's the best neighborhood in Ottawa, of course." You know what I mean? Like I had no idea. So, and he'd be like, just jump in on one of my calls, and I was just butchering it. Like my tonality was shit.
Same.
Like he taught me from the start, and that's why I wasn't taking any money on this. I was an internship. Like he gave me an opportunity or whatever. But he would just sit in the back of the room, and half the time he'd be on his phone. You wouldn't even think he's paying attention. Then he would just chime in and be like, "Yeah, that's shit. No, that's not going to work. Whatever." Yeah. And it's like, I think that when the higher level guy, I personally think the higher level guys I deal with, the higher D they are. Yeah. Because it's just like, let's not waste time. I'm not trying to insult you. He is not trying to be rude. He's not just like, let's get to the fucking point. Yeah. I'm not here to waste time, right? Whereas, but Steve's a little bit more analytical in that sense too. And I have this joke about Steve. Like I tell him every time he's drinking, he slowly and watch for this next time you see him, his body slowly like gets further back, where he's like almost pushing his chest out, but he's just so laid back that he's just like walking around. And he'll eventually, I'm like, how are you even standing
Dude, that
up?
is so true. That is so unbelievable, man. Yeah, Steve's so funny. They are yin and yang, but together. And like to paint a picture, these guys are both like legit MMA fighters.
Yeah.
So before I even got licensed, I was working out with Todd, who's now with EXP again. He's got his own team now. So I was working out with Todd, and I was working out with Tarek, and then Tarek one day was like, "Dude, we should do like some jujitsu and stuff, like Krav Maga."
No,
whatever.
you didn't go.
Oh yeah, bro.
Oh no.
So I was getting my license. I think I was on like my fourth course, something like that. He's like, "Yeah, meet me in the basement, whatever." So I show up and I'm just wearing like a t-shirt. He's gonna hate that I'm telling all these stories, but these are legendary.
Yeah.
So wearing like a t-shirt and shorts. He's like, "Dude, where's your gi?" I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, you need a
there's
gi."
like a special outfit?
Yeah. So I had to like those karate outfits basically.
Oh,
so he gives me one. So I'm there. We're in his basement, and he's like, "Dude, we're doing like Gracie's training, like high level, like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and then Krav Maga, which is literally like gun-based and knife-based takeaways."
Yeah. He has like the highest certification of gun and knife.
Massive. Yeah. So like literally we're like in his basement, like doing like web strikes, all this crap. And then eventually the reason I stopped was he cracked one of my ribs.
Oh shit!
Like it was accident, but I was like, "Oh man!" And he is an absolute beast. So
I wouldn't be doing that.
If you think he's intimidating, one-on-one in a room in a business setting, wait till that guy is on top of you with his knee in your freaking. Yeah. It was intense.
It's like you call these guys killers in the business world, but they're like actually certified.
I remember one time being like, "Oh, what would you do if a guy like pulled a gun on you?" He's like, "Well, I would know what to do." Yeah. I was like, okay. Right. But no, these guys are the best. And the same thing, like I remember one time, so we have an unbelievable listing presentation, like super dialed.
Because you guys practice it, I'm assuming?
Nonstop.
Yeah.
I went in there.
I believe in that so much, man. I can't believe how many people don't.
Well, it's just repetition in anything, right? Like it's, it has to just become so fluid. And so that's it. Now I feel so dialed, right? But a lot of people, they just come in, they have a couple comps. Yeah, we're the best in the business. Well, what makes you the best in the business? Oh, well, we Facebook marketing. Right?
It's not actually a presentation.
And a lot of the stuff that we do, I mean, I won't necessarily say it right now, but like there's a lot of the stuff that we do that it's just legitimately genius.
Yeah.
How he switches things up. So, but I remember being in there with another girl who was also doing it, and like she like started tearing up. She was like that nervous.
Really?
It was pretty hectic, but yeah, she's in the admin department now. There you go. But she does a fantastic job.
Dude, it takes a different breed to do what we do though. You 100%. Like this is a game of no's and I think the first 3 years in real estate, no wonder where there's a higher turnaround or whatever the word is I'm looking for. Like I think it's 80% the first turnover. First 2 years, 80% of agents fail. In the first 3 years or the first 5, it's 90% fail. So it's like, it's not easy, right? It's not. Okay, but speaking of not easy, I want to get to these stories. So in the leasing game, you have a plethora of stories, but there's one that stood out to me, and I want to. This is kind of like so. Okay, so I've been posting a lot of these videos of of this podcast, and Robbie kept hitting me up. He's like, "Oh, buddy, you got to put me in. I got a couple good ones. You got to put me in here." And so then this was the one where you were like I think you just sent me like a one sentencer of like what the punchline of what happened was, and I was like, "All right, let's line it up."
Yeah, so I've seen everything. Obviously, dealing with student rentals, like I've had people that are like, "Hey, can I have a cat?" You walk in, they have like 15 cats.
Right.
You know, it's like African lion safari in there, and then I've got like other areas where like we've dealt with stabbings, we've dealt with like hoarders, we've dealt with legitimate crackheads, we've dealt with people trying to get physical with us, and I would say my first welcome to real estate, like if you think this is selling sunsets and like it's easy, blah blah blah, I finally like leased my, this is before I even had my license, I finally like leased my first bed, right? And it was a sublet in a 6 unit. We had a vacancy right in a 6, so we would, these 6 bangers, we try to make them all 6, generally groups, but if there was 1 or 2 people that weren't there and we couldn't fulfill it, say it was the summer or something,
right,
try to get someone in there. So my first signing, it was like a 30-something-year-old, like recently single lady with like a Mercedes-Benz and a solid job, who was going in with like 5 like second-year students. And I'm like, I don't think this is going to be the play, like whatever,
right,
to be honest. She's like, no, we'll make it work. Well, it didn't work. She hated her life after like 2 weeks, which is understandable. And so she basically was like, hey, Robbie, like, I want out. I'm like, well, we got to find someone for you. I'm like, I will help show it for you,
right,
but like, you got to find someone. So she finds someone. And it's like a Saturday or a Sunday, and it's like a big Red Blacks game.
Oh yeah.
Right. And this is like Red Blacks for a bunch of years there. I mean, this year they had a bit of a slower ride, but a bunch of years there, it was like a big party.
Yeah.
Right. It's like sunny. It's something to do. So these, and like a couple local guys played on the Red Blacks, right? That were like previous Ottawa U guys, whatever. So in this building, there was like a big party going on. It was like a day drink party.
Right.
So they come to the building, and already you're having it like, it's like this young, innocent, like 1st or 2nd year girl with like her parents. And you can tell she was like in engineering, not a drinker or whatever. And her parents, and the music's just like dun, 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 dun. And you're like, oh yeah, great building, quiet area. There's homeless people running everywhere. Like, you know the rat by name. You're like shaking his hand, like, good to see you, fella.
Right.
Like, it's a Sandy Hill.
Yeah.
So I'm there. I'm trying to like, talk about the building. And oh yeah, I think there's just like a birthday party or something. This isn't every day upstairs. And there's a balcony. And as I'm doing it, like, I'm kind of rattled. Because like, I'm like, frig, this is a Saturday. I'm here showing this. I don't really need to be, but I want to try to do the right thing. And I want to fill this vacancy.
And there's no way I'm getting this rented now at this point.
Yeah, and there's no way. And then I'm like, oh, and I'm probably like, let's be honest, it's 25. It's probably sneaky hungover too.
Yeah.
And so next thing I know, I see a look of horror on the mom's face. And everyone's kind of like, it was like, like a movie where it's like a slow-mo, like, da 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 da. And I'm just like, I feel something. And it's literally like a scene, in American Pie, like when the dude gets pissed on from the roof, like there's a drunk dude peeing on me. And I'm literally just there, and my whole back's wet. I'm wearing a golf shirt. My whole back's wet. And then I turn around, and I'm trying to like mother F this guy without, swearing. I'm like, excuse me, sir. Like, what are you doing? Like that's another thing with this profession. You have to find ways to like basically say F you without saying it.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then he comes down, he tries to fight me.
In front of the clients.
In front of the clients and everything. And he's like staggering, like, what did you say to me? I'm like, dude, I'm covered in your pee. You know what I mean? Like, it was greasy, man. But yeah, that was
welcome to real estate.
That was welcome to real estate, baby.
And it doesn't get better either, because we got another couple stories. You were talking about the importance of checking the unit for landlords too, right?
Well, yeah.
If you haven't checked on it, you said there was a younger dude that his mom was co-signing for or whatever.
Yeah.
And you guys went and checked on it.
So I would always say to people, because everyone, like, when they look at real estate, we're
sprinkling some knowledge too amongst the.
Yeah, of course you have to. So I always say to people, there's a few things you want to do. So if you have especially students,
right,
get co-signers, get guarantors for their parents, because if little Timmy is 22 years old and he's smoking weed 24/7. You kind of tell him, stop, do it. You issue the end forms, whatever, he does it. And all of a sudden you call his dad. The dad doesn't want to get the call in the middle of the day. My 22-year-old son is like smoking pot nonstop, and we're going to have to like this, that, the other. And that guy doesn't want his dad to chirp him either, right? Yeah. But then on top of that, you want to see how's your unit doing, because everyone's like, oh, it's passive income, it's whatever. Well, I mean, if they're not paying the rent, or if it's trashed, or if there's a lot of damage, and then all of a sudden this tenant skips town, especially if they're like international students and stuff, right, where they might never come back to the country again, right? You want to be constantly checked. So little things like to check the fire alarm, or I got to change the air filter, or like the carbon monoxide, or we're just doing a quick inspection here and there for whatever. Just come up with some reason. Obviously, give them notice. Yeah. But just to see how's your building looking, and it also forces the tenant to clean up as well too, which is kind of nice. But yeah, a friend of mine had a 2-bedroom high-rise condo, and at least, thank God, he had a guarantor for this kid. But I leased it to them, paid on time every time, wasn't thinking about it. Walks in after this kid moves out. It was a 2-bed. So usually when you move in a 2-bed, you're like, oh, this would be a nice place for my bed. This maybe in the living room, this is a nice place for a sectional. Yeah. This kid had like one of those small, like just like the love seat, like the cuck chairs. He had one of those. And then literally just his living room was just a net. And he like used it as a driving range. So there's literal like golf balls all through it. He'd shanked it a couple times, and then in the second bedroom, he had one of those plastic sheets down. And was like had a legitimate hockey net in there. It was like slap shots, hockey practice, like it was mangled. So he took all the pictures, sent it to the mom. Luckily, he owned a construction company as well and was able to fix everything and actually made a little bit of money on it. But yeah, you definitely want to see what is in your unit,
because you never know.
You literally never know. And we've had that with animals too. Yeah. Like we had like one time there was legitimately went into a unit and there was not only a python, but it wasn't in the cage.
Oh, really?
It was like out, and it was like, it looked like someone from Smugglers.
Yeah. Guy loves the fact that there's these big rat snakes at Smugglers Gulf Course.
I mean, I've never seen anything like it, but yeah,
they're huge.
We don't have a lot of rat snakes in Whitby, Ontario, well, I guess I live in Carp now, so maybe I'll see one of those soon.
So it's funny, like, I don't know what it is, man, but we've had so many snake chats on this. Have you heard my python story from last year?
No.
So I've already told it on the podcast, but like, so we. I'll sum it. I'll try to make it quick. So we went to this building where one of my buyers bought a triplex, and there was one unit that we were never able to get into. And all we knew that there was an older lady that lived in there. And like the older lady he was trying to get her out so he could move into the unit, and because the other, rents were higher or whatever. But we had zero communication with this girl. At one point, the seller, I think, said that like she was talking about leaving, but wasn't sure or whatever. So we'd been there like 2 or 3 times, and now we're at like the final walkthrough. And so we go to knock on this girl's door, and I'm like, dude, we've had so much notice 3 separate times. The door was locked. I'm going to try to open it. And if it's like, we have notice to come in here. If it's open, we're going in. So like I opened the door, and it was like this girl left in a hurry. Like I was like wondering if something was wrong. Yeah. The fridge was wide open. It stunk. And I was like, it almost seemed like a crime scene or something. Like half her shit was still there. It was the weirdest thing, right? So the other place that we weren't able to get into was what was below her unit, which was like one of those crawl spaces where you got to go in from outside, like the creepy dungeon.
That's no bueno, yeah.
Yeah, so my client, for reference, is like a bodybuilder, big boy. His dad is like I think he does like HVAC or whatever. So he's like, versed in the construction world. Yeah. These are tough guys.
Yeah.
And they go down into this like cellar, and I was gonna go down there, but I'm like honestly, the suit I was wearing that day, I was like, this thing's gonna get fucked if I go down there. So, but I could see the whole thing, right? And he's got his flashlight going around. The dad, and then all of a sudden he points it on the corner, and he just starts dropping F-bombs. Like, what the fuck? And the kid like didn't even like hesitate, didn't say a word, like. He was up and out of those stairs because they're tight in there, right?
Oh yeah.
In like half a second, he was shitting himself.
Yeah,
and I'm
levitated.
Like, so, and I don't like, if you're following my story without the reference of the snake, like I'm thinking this fucking lady's down there.
Oh God.
Right?
That's very bad. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking that. Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, and then so the way he's like reacting, I'm like, okay, maybe it's like a raccoon or something. And then the kid's like, is it a snake? Is it a snake? Tell me it's not a snake. I'm fucking terrified of snakes. And so his dad's like, he doesn't say anything, and then comes out out of the thing, still doesn't say anything. And I'm like, all right, at this point, I'm not asking. Like, I don't know. If you don't want to talk about it, I don't want to talk about it. We go around the back of the building, and there's this like, so he's like, hey, Pat. And he starts laughing. He's like, you see what's on that guy's balcony? And there's like a 14-foot long aquarium. Like, it's his entire balcony.
Jeez.
He goes, whatever lived in that is what I just saw in the basement.
Oh my God, man.
So it was like I think he said a 6 to 8 foot long python that was in the basement, obviously feeding on the rats and stuff. I don't know if it must have escaped the aquarium, I guess.
Jeez.
And so imagine me the next day, because we're close to closing now. I have to call this agent and be like, man, I don't know who deals with this. Ace Ventura, maybe. Like I don't know who we call for this. Yeah. But you got to get rid of it. Yeah. And so like I literally had to like up to the closing.
Joe Exotic shows up.
Yeah, exactly. So so give me your Python story. Oh, and we had one other one where we went through in the basement. Actually, I sent Trevor had just got licensed. Okay. This was like the first. I was like, it's an easy walkthrough. Deal's done. Just go see the place. Like just go for a walkthrough. One of the other agents is doing it for me. I'm out of town, whatever. And there was like 100 snakes and also 50 snakes and like 100 rats. So he was feeding the rats. He was breeding the rats for the snakes, and they were all in boxes in the basement.
Oh my God, man.
I don't know what the deal is with snakes.
Was his name Robin Leonard?
I don't know. So what's your? Give me your snake story.
I mean, that's pretty well it. But man, no, I do. We had another one too, though. This is actually hilarious. Where our friends.
Wait, so where was it? It was just chilling. Did you tell? Did you?
Oh, the python. Yeah, it was in the guy. It was like on the guy's couch. Like half the thing was on the guy when we walked in.
Did the guy was there though?
No. He had like gone out, done his like errands. So like this thing was like he would just let it out.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, but like I was laughing actually as you were telling that story because I forgot about this. Like Steve Alexopoulos, legend. Yeah. But he was like showing Tarek and I like a thing or whatever. Like he's like, man, dude, check out this anaconda. That's crazy. And I was like, dude, I'm pretty sure that's from the movie Anaconda. Oh, no. It like legitimately was. Like imagine you be like, man, look at the size of this shark or whatever. You're like, dude, that's from Jaws.
That's from Jaws.
That's from Jaws 2.
Which is real.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Okay, so what you had? What else did you have? Oh, okay, so you had the one about. This isn't necessarily like I guess checking in on your space, but so another story that we had told on the podcast too was I did a deal where it's like the point to be learned was like do your research before you go see the property because I didn't know it was an estate sale and I didn't know like why it was an estate sale. So 3 people had died in the property, and it was left like that for 3 months. So like. So like the flies were like landing on the people and then landing on the walls, and I was going in the house and it was covering the walls.
Yeah.
And
you gotta be like hazmat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So then the agent that I had on, gay guy from town, he's a Remax guy, and he was saying, so he showed the same property. It was his first week license, and he goes in there and he's leaving, and there's just people driving by because the list price is like $170K for a detached. I was like, what's going on?
Made no sense.
Yeah. So then he's just like catching people as they're going by, like, oh, you want to see the unit? So he ended up showing the unit for like half a day. He's like breathing in.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This guy's got a new virus coming out.
There was one that somebody walked in on, like an agent. I guess like the story goes that like the agent handled it like so professionally. I don't know which agent it was in Kingston, but I know they're still selling, and because it was like relatively recently since I've had my license. Yeah. And they walked in the front door and there was like somebody had hung themselves in the front.
That's not what you need, man. No, that's oof.
That's crazy.
Well, you got to do your research anyway. Like I've had friends of mine that like we have like a new construction. Right? If we have like a listing or something, and maybe the house isn't built yet, and like they've shown up to like the lot and it's like an empty lot, like they're going to show a house, and they call me and I'm like,
oh, you got to do your research.
Like, dude, what are you talking about? They're like, oh, these guys are from out of town. Like they were really, I'm like, that thing isn't even, it's like, we haven't even broke ground yet. Like that's like a 2024 like close. Like, go check out, whatever. But yeah. No, I mean, this didn't happen to me. This is pretty greasy, but a friend of mine in Toronto, this is another thing too, where he was managing property, and there was like an obese guy who wasn't always the most responsive, but hadn't paid his rent, and that was unusual. He was like grandfathered in, and like he wasn't going anywhere.
Right.
And yeah, like he was like an obese dude, and he, I guess, had a heart attack. They tried to get a hold of him for a couple weeks, calls, emails, door knocks, and then finally like, we got to get in here. So they went in there and this guy found the dude literally upside down. Like he passed out with his head over the bed, and there was like a space heater right on him. and like between the pressure of this guy's weight and I guess the heat and then obviously all the blood rushing to his head, like his skull was intact, but like he pretty well like blew up and no one knew how long he was there for.
Wow.
And then his joke was like, he's like, yeah, I'm Italian and like I'll probably never eat lasagna again.
Jesus Christ.
which is not good. Rest in peace, sir. But yeah, that's not good.
All this is just to say that, like, I think that when people see Selling Sunset and think that this job is easy or that, you know, it's easy money, it's like we deal with a lot of stuff that you wouldn't, you know, think that we have to.
Yeah. Well, everyone's like, it's easy money. And there are days where you're like, I can't, like, there's been times where I haven't met the person and I haven't shown the property. And you like do a deal out of 3 hours, you're just like, I just made X amount.
Yeah.
But then there's also times where you're running around. Like I had a 7-figure deal blow up where we got to the finish line and, you know, I'm not going to get into too much detail, but they basically, the lender called me and was like, there's no way we're lending this guy money. Like he's been involved in organized crime and has like amassed like over 40 charges of like gun related, this, that, the other. So I was like, okay, man, whatever. So there's times where things blow up or you show someone 100 properties and they're just like, oh yeah, we're going to rent to own.
All right, buddy. Thanks so much for coming in. If anybody out there that's watching wants to connect with you or find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, Instagram, Robbie M. Williams 89.
Thank God you updated that Instagram too.
It was Gucci Daddy, but yeah, it was always awkward. Like I was with this like mortgage, the referral mortgage Christmas party and talking to like legitimate lenders, like guys making $1 million a year. And they're like, what's your Instagram? I'm like,
you're like, oh no,
it's Gucci Daddy 89. Or I'd be out for dinner and like I'm with my girlfriend and some like 20-year-old girl's like Gucci. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Thanks, brother.
And as we wrap up every episode, here we go.